everyone, and welcome to another Starscape video dev blog. This is a particularly exciting one. If you didn't catch the last one, we revealed the first half of our work during the accelerator program, and that was player stations. So go check out that video if you haven't already. But today I'm not going to be talking about player stations. I'm going to be talking about the other major project we've been working on during the accelerator program. So this is something that we started about halfway through the program to really start focusing on. And I just spent a week really working on and hashing out the implementation for it. And now it's ready to show off. So before we get into the game to show you what we have so far, I did want to take a moment to explain sort of the reasoning behind working on this particular feature. So as we sort of hinted at with player stations, we're really trying to make Starscape just a more engaging experience and an experience that has more goals, that has more end game content, that has more long-term things to do, and just that has more things you want to do. And in addition to that, what we're really been starting to look at is player progression. So what are milestones that players reach? What are things that make people feel good about playing Starscape, that make them feel like they've come a long way in the game? And right now in the live game, that's really sort of restricted to just getting new ships. There isn't a heck of a lot more you can do and then look back and like have something that says, look what I've accomplished. So, what's the difference between a player who has played for a year and a player who's played for a week? And that's something we've really been looking into and that we want to start working on more. This feature, which you might be able to guess based on what I'm talking about, is sort of our hope is that it's going to give you milestones along the way throughout your gameplay. It's going to give you end game and long-term goals to really reach for. And it's going to be fun while you're doing it, and it's going to adapt to your play style. So without further ado, let's jump into Starscape. Let's take a look at what it looks like. All right, so here we are on the Starscape dev server at the Citadel, and I'm going to go ahead and show you our second accelerator project. Skills. So I hope you weren't totally thrown off by that. I hope you had a bit of an idea where we were going with that previous spiel. But yeah, we're going to do a skill system. And this is something that I think a lot of people have thrown out ideas for over the months, heck, even over the years of Starscape, is the idea of skills and implementing them into the game. And it's something that the more that we looked at Starscape, the more we realized skills are kind of perfect for what the game is. So I'm going to go ahead and do a brief explanation. I want to shout out Critique here at the beginning because this is sort of Critique's baby, and all the icons, basically all the design that you see here, like all the hex tiles, that's all been spearheaded by Critique. So super awesome work, and yeah, just wanted to make that little shout out there. But let's go ahead and dive into each of the skill constellations, get a little bit of an idea of what they are. I want to further say that you'll notice a lot of placeholder things right now because we're still defining what all of the skills are. So, we didn't want to completely finish the system before we revealed it because that would take too long, and we want to get, community input on what maybe some of the skills should be, if things are overpowered, if underpowered, how useful they're going to be, etc. So what we're looking at right now, though, is the piloting skill tree, which is the layout of it is pretty much set. We're pretty happy with it. The one thing that's not done with it, of course, is all the icons. I think Critique actually sent me a bunch of icons that I just haven't implemented yet, so I need to get on that. But basically what you see here is, well, let's go through each of the elements. So we have individual skills, and if we mouse over them, we can see what they are. And you're going to notice that certain things are locked. You're also going to notice some new names on here for classes of ship that you might not be familiar with. So I'll go ahead and explain that. For haulers, for example, um, the Zubron, we've decided to, and Zubron class ships, so what we earlier might have called hauler corvettes, we've decided to reclass as freighters. And then the name for the Galaxy type ships, this is not totally set in stone yet, but we're calling them mega freighters. And then if you go down to miners, the Ozark type miners are prospectors, the Kodiak types are retrievers, and the Yukon types are excavators, which is probably one of the best new names. Um, so you're probably noticing already that some of these skills are locked. And so does this mean that you can't fly a Yukon if you don't train the excavator skill? And the answer to that is yes. We have decided to change ships in the game so that you will only be able to fly them if you train the skills for them. Now, I want to preface that by saying if you are able to fly a ship in game right now, if you own a ship, you're still going to be able to fly it after this update drops. We will give you the level 1 skill you need to fly the ship. So you're not going to have to go through a lengthy process of retraining things just to be able to fly ships you used to be able to fly, because that would be an awful experience and we don't want to do that to anyone. But for new players and new accounts, so any alts you might make in the future as well, you'll actually have to unlock ships as you play the game. And, there's a host of reasons for this. One of them is progression gating is kind of a good way to give guidance to players. Um, and in addition to that, we are also using these skills as not just unlocking things, but they're for improving these ships as well. But giving you sort of this nice semi-linear way to unlock ships and progress in the game is going to make things a lot more obvious as to like what's your next step. Okay, I'm flying a Liberty now. Well, what's my next step? Frigates. Oh, okay, so I'd be able to fly the Virtue if I get that skill. I'll be able to fly the Justice if I get that skill. And we're not going to make it prohibitively expensive to unlock all the skills, but you will have to unlock them. However, training them to their highest levels is going to take quite a bit of time because it gives you that little bit of additional edge over other players. And so we'll go ahead and jump into the fighter skill to see what I'm talking about. So the fighter skill everyone starts with. And then the current idea for what it might do is that every time you train it thereafter, you get an additional 2% to hit points, so shield and hull, per level that you train it. So this would mean that someone who has fighters trained to level 5 has 8% more hit points than someone who just has it trained to level 1. And everyone's going to start out with it level 1. You're not going to have to train the fighter skill to level 1. So what this does is it essentially, if you love flying fighters, if you're really, really skilled with them and you want to uh, give yourself that additional little edge, you can choose to train that to level 5. If you don't really care about fighters, but you really care about your corvettes, if you love flying your radics around, maybe you're going to train the corvette skill to level 5 and prioritize that. So after you unlock it, there's still plenty of reason to continue training the skill for that ship. Now, the one thing about the piloting skill tree that's interesting to talk about is how do you earn piloting skill points? And right now, the skill points are kind of placeholder. With the piloting skill tree, we're most likely going to go with a sort of licensing system so that you'll just pay for it with credits. This is nice for a few reasons, but the other way we kind of thought of doing it was that maybe you could get points for the amount of time you fly, but that would encourage you to just, create a macro and spin your Paragon in circles or something to get piloting skill points, which isn't fun. So it will likely be credit based, but all the other skill trees are intended to be skill point based. So for example, the combat skill tree, you can earn the skill points by destroying enemy ships. And perhaps there will be other ways as well, but the things that have been implemented right now are destroying ships. So as you destroy ships, you will earn loyalty points. Sorry, not loyalty points. You'll earn skill points. I'm using a loyalty points icon as a placeholder. And then you can unlock skills as you go. So for example, with the combat tree, of course is designed around combat. So one of the obvious skills is weapon systems, which increases your space combat proficiency. So the idea for the skill, and again, I want to stress these are placeholder um, values. We're pretty sure this is sort of the direction we want to go, but we also want to get everyone's feedback as we do this. But the plan right now is that there's going to be this base level weapon system skill. As you train it, you will increase all space combat damage you deal by 1% per level, which it doesn't seem like a lot, but that's 5% if you train to level 5, which is quite an edge in a heated battle. I mean, if you think of how many times you've gotten out of an engagement with, just a few percent of your hull left, if you had a little bit, if the other player had a little bit more damage, a bit better skills trained than you, then you might not have made it out of there. And then, in addition to these general skills, we want to let you specialize. So maybe you really like using laser weapons. We have a laser weapon skill that you can spec into and that you can train up as high as you want, so that all your laser type turrets will do up to 5% more damage if you train it all the way. And then if you want to take it even further, if you love using, down here, we have a similar thing for kinetic weapons. If you love using coil guns, for example, you can go ahead and spec even further into specifically coil guns so that you can really just get up to a 15% damage bonus if you've trained everything to level 5 and if you're using all the right turrets that you've trained for. So we love this idea because it's not a soul-crushing advantage, right? It's not making old players completely insurmountable in combat to newer players. But it is going to give you that little bit of edge. It's going to give you a reason to want to train these skills. It's going to make you feel good about your character. It's going to reward you for playing the game longer and being an active player. So that's sort of our idea behind the combat skill tree. Of course, there are going to be more skills than there are right now. We have several other ideas. They just haven't been implemented yet. But again, all these beautiful icons done by Critique. So we really happy with the way all this is turning out. I want to talk about the other skill trees. You're going to notice that there's nothing on them yet. We have spreadsheets detailing all of our plans for them that we're still building. And so before we build the skill constellations, I think I've been saying trees, but we do call them constellations because this is Starscape. The industry skill tree, of course, is going to be all about mining, crafting, and refining. And so things like increased refining yields. So maybe there's a core light processing skill that gives you an additional 1% yield per level. Maybe there are going to be skills for mining turret proficiency, things like that. I'm sure you can come up with a lot more. But all the skills that we're doing, apart from the piloting skills, they're not going to be abilities. They're going to be small bonuses that one skill might not make a difference, but over time, as you build up your compendium of skills, as you train things to higher and higher levels, you'll start to feel how much better it is to have all these skills trained. It gives you something to reach for. It gives you, interesting. We do want to make them, even though they're small bonuses, we do plan to make them very interesting and allow for, more tactical or more interesting gameplay. So that's sort of the philosophy behind that. And as I was saying, the industry skill tree, mining, crafting, refining. Commerce skill tree is all about hauling, selling items, other stuff probably that I'm blanking on. I think trade union syndicate missions and as well as like trade union syndicate supplies in faction warfare will be feeding into the commerce skill tree. And that'll be sort of how you earn your skill points for the commerce skill tree. Innovation skill tree, we probably aren't going to get into the initial release. That will be done under a more research and exploration oriented update. And then the civic skill tree. The civic skill tree is all about player stations and NPC factions. So it's your interactions with the Kavani, Licentians, and Falcons are going to give you skill points and be impacted by your skills in this tree. And in addition, your station management, how efficient your station is all going to feed into this skill tree as well. So that's sort of an overview of all of these planned skill constellations. In addition, you're going to notice a few things that have happened. You'll notice we no longer have the standings tab up top. That has been replaced with this section in the career tab, which in turn has replaced the ventures. You'll also notice, however, that the same sort of titles that we used for the venture system have now been incorporated into skill trees. So skill trees are not a one-to-one replacement for ventures, but they're going to sort of serve the same purpose. So even though there's not going to be that distinction between like hunter and pirate that we had with ventures, the skills are still going to grant you titles as you progress in each constellation. So they serve a very similar purpose, and ventures have just been outdated for a long, long time anyway. So um, that's about all I have to about like the theory behind all of it and the mechanics. I will go ahead and show you what it's like to upgrade a skill because we're really proud of how that all turned out. But if we go ahead and click on the retriever skill, so this is if I wanted to train like the Kodiak, for example. You've trained prospectors to level 3, prospectors required you to train miners to level 3, and now you're ready to train retrievers. So we'll go ahead and upgrade. And there you go. Now you can fly your Kodiak. So we're pretty excited about that effect, and I'm going to do it again just because I like it a lot. So yeah, it's just fun. Skills are gonna make you feel progression as you play the game instead of having just long off goals of, hey, maybe I want a Yukon in 7 more hours of exploration. As you're actually playing, you'll earn skill points based on the things you're doing that will feed into skill trees that further enhance your abilities in those things you like to do. Well, I hope you're all as excited about the skill system as we are. We've been working on it for a good bit now, lots of time in the planning stages, and the implementation has really come together just in the past week. And we're really proud of the way it all looks. We think we've got a great design that really fits Starscape perfectly. We hope you think so too. We're going to be posting a lot more in the dev blog in the coming weeks as we're wrapping up the accelerator program. We've got more work on player stations. We're doing plenty of stuff on the skill system, industry overhaul, tons of stuff to talk about. So that all, of course, is going to be on the Discord server. There will be a link in the description if somehow you got here not from the Discord server. And then check out the roadmap. That's been updated recently to be prettier and to be more up to date. So you can see all the plans that we have going forward. At least get a vague idea of what we want to be working on. But yeah, for the rest of the accelerator program, player stations and skills, we're going to be just trying to keep you up to date with our ideas for skills and the what we want to do with each skill constellation, and hopefully you have some ideas too, and we'll see what we can get into the game. So thank you all for watching and listening as always. And as always, thanks for sticking with us, and I'll see you next time.